Sports has a great reach, obviously. You heard John Skipper talking about it, and I understand that I'm in a room of people that are in sports business. But regardless, sports has an incredible reach. It's a live event. It's something people are passionate about. And when you talk about a brand and wanting to reach people, in some ways there's nothing better than being able to find something that people are passionate about and how they can expand brand. Advertising and sponsorship through the sports industry just continues to grow. And people are trying to look and see where's the reach and where does it go? And that's what they're going to tackle in our next panel, brand expansion through sport. Our panelists are up here. They will be introduced, I promise. But our moderator, one of very few female faces in here, and we were bonding over that while we were walking back here from Pizza House, Fredda Hurwitz, who currently is serving as the Global Vice President of Strategic Planning, Marketing, and Communications at Havas Sports and Entertainment. She started there in 2009. She works with a diverse group of brands, but her background is even more incredible than that, as she was sharing with me. Started in journalism, had a desire to do investigative reporting, and worked her way into this. So her brand and her expansion and her reach is obviously even greater than that. A round of applause for her as we get set for our panel.
So we've got 3 University of Michigan alumni up there.
I actually didn't go to Michigan. I'm sorry.
No,
should I leave?
That's okay, because I'm even more out of it than you are. You at least have family in Ann Arbor. I went to Berkeley.
In the front row staring at me right now.
Where's mom and dad?
Right there.
Mom and dad? Hi.
Yes.
I went to Berkeley, and I just want to say you have a magnificent campus here, and you guys have done an extraordinary job with the conference, so bravo. Hard for me to say, because obviously I went to a fine university somewhere else, but you guys are doing a great job. So I'm going to ask each of you to just give a little blurbette about yourself, who your favorite sports team is, and prediction for the game for tomorrow. Ooh.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
Well, definitely favorite football team is Michigan. Basically any Michigan sport. And if we're talking LA, I like the Clippers because Blake Griffin actually interned at Funny or Die during the NBA lockout, which is a lot of fun. And prediction for tomorrow, definitely high scoring. I would say 42-30 Michigan.
Okay. Writing us down, tweeting it, because it could come back tomorrow. Never know.
Favorite team is any team that's playing against a Rich Rod coach team.
You really hate Rich Rod.
Yeah. And score, I think Michigan by at least 30 tomorrow.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. Big odds.
Yep.
Matt?
My favorite team is University of Michigan football. I'm going to be honest with you. It sticks with you, I guess, in your heart. And my prediction for tomorrow is a win, but I'm not going to go anywhere near a score given how the team's played recently, but we will win.
Okay. And finally, Matt.
All right. Favorite team, Michigan football. Second favorite team, Michigan basketball. Third would be Chicago White Sox, originally from Chicago. In terms of tomorrow, it's definitely coming down to the last possession, unfortunately. If Akron came down to the last possession, Indiana's coming down to the last possession. 38-37 blue.
I'm not going to predict. I'm a Boston fan, but I live in London, so I actually have no reason to say anything for this. So, unfortunately, you guys didn't actually give you a little blurbette about yourself. So can we just quickly?
Yeah, I'm president of production at Funny or Die, so I've been there over 5 years, and I oversee the website, our TV projects, and our film projects. And Funny or Die was founded by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay.
Dan Griffis, I'm the head of strategic partnerships, lifestyle marketing, and events at Target. It's probably the longest title at Target. And my job responsibility is all sports, entertainment, all of our experiential marketing, influencer marketing, and how that intersects with all the different category businesses that we do at Target.
I'm Matt Kauffman. I'm head of sports entertainment partnerships at Visa, and we manage a global portfolio of sports properties, including the Olympic Games, FIFA World Cup, and then 40 or so sponsorships in the U.S., which includes the NFL, Canada, we have NHL, so a fun group of sports properties and also entertainment properties as well.
And I'm Matt Scarlata. I work at Uniliver, a company that I think by name might not sound too familiar, but we might have seen the booth out there. A lot of recognizable brands like Dove, Dove for Men, Axe, Degree Deodorant. Those are some of the brands that I work on. And our main sponsorship is of the NCAA basketball tournament. So you might have seen our brands in the tournament the past couple of years.
Right. Thank you very much. So I'm hoping more that we're going to get a little chat going versus me asking lots of questions, although I have the questions written down here. And I've also asked each of the guys to share a video which they think best typifies how their brand comes to life and how they use it within a sporting context to expand their brand, talking to different audiences. So we're going to pepper our conversations with some videos, which will also keep you awake as our special guest comes on at 4 o'clock. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you, only because you're a little bit the odd one out in this context.
I've noticed, yes. We're usually the people asking these guys for money.
Go right ahead. They're right next to you.
That's why
Yes.
we're networking, aren't we?
You've already got a yes. You don't
Yes,
have to do
okay.
anything. Why do you think sport is such a driver for success? And is it really helping you in what you do engage with audiences? How do you do it?
I mean, it's definitely a driver because sports is just one of the few things people really care about anymore. I mean, there's so many choices out there, but everyone has that passionate reaction. And it's so interesting because, you know, advertisers spend so much time trying to engage with people. And as do we. We try really hard to engage with audiences, but it's really hard. I mean,
It is.
It's easy to come on a panel and talk about engagement and consumer interaction and all of this, but it's hard. Most people don't care and they don't pay attention. So if you can kind of piggyback on something that they do care about, which is sports, then it's a natural entry point to try and do different things with them.
Dan, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's been talked about pretty much this entire day, is that sports are inherently social, and unless you're some sort of loner, you like to watch sports with other people, and whether it's your family or your buddies. And so as a brand, you want to be around culturally relevant moments in time, and that's how you reach people authentically. And I think that for a brand like Target, and John Skipper talked about this earlier, is that, you know, live sports and award shows are two of the best ways to reach people in real time. And so Target has a big position within the Oscars and the Emmys and the Grammys, and we also have a big position in some of the different sports, like the Olympics is a big deal for us in terms of our media buy. And so we choose to do that because of that reason, is that we want to reach consumers at that time. Sports also provide an opportunity, in my opinion, to reach people as a way of permission to enter their lives. And I sort of bring up our 25-year relationship in motorsports as a perfect example of that. We talk long and hard about the fact that people are actually cheering for the brand. I mean, Target is the car. So whether it's IndyCar or NASCAR, people are cheering for Target. It's not like people are cheering for the Amazon.com Yankees. That doesn't exist. What exists is Target Chip Ganassi Racing, and the fact that we built equity in that over the last 25 years really becomes the story, and it really becomes our brand is something that they can continue to cheer for.
Can I just pick up one point on that before you take over, Mike? Matt, sorry, not Mike. What you just said about the storytelling bit, which is incredibly important. We've mentioned that before, but it's not just telling the story, it's doing the story. And it's how you continue to bring that to life. And most of you guys don't remember this, and don't take this the wrong way, Dan, but not so long ago, Target was a little bit of a joke in the terms of people saying, I'm going to Target to get whatever it is I want to get.
We like that. That's okay.
You want to keep Target?
Yeah, that's fine.
We're going to go to Target to pick up our things.
You bet.
And I think as a retailer, it's pretty difficult to stay sexy and to find a point of view and find your place within, particularly in sports sponsorship, because ultimately you have a big store, 4 walls, and you're selling other people's goods, but you've become the hero in this, which is it's extraordinary. Sorry, Matt.
You talk about a product that's probably not very sexy. Visa's an incredible brand, but it's just not that sexy. How many people in this room have a Visa product in their wallet? Raise your hand. So the brand promise is so clean and so amazing that no one even thinks about it. You carry it everywhere and it works. So it's an incredible brand from that perspective, but in order to make it sexy and to create a platform to talk about our brand, we've used sports. And in fact, we built the brand of Visa globally on the back of sports sponsorships, primarily the Olympic Games. So it's been an incredible platform for us to drive our business and grow our brand. And it's changed our company to the point now where we are one of the leading global brands in the world in terms of valuation and prominence. So sports has been incredibly important to us.
I think you guys touched on the key points: reach, relevance, huge there. You think credit cards are unsexy? I work on deodorants. So, you know, but again, it's a way for us to talk to consumers in a very engaging environment. If you look at a brand like Dove for Men, you know, we launched this brand and have supported primarily through sports. Like, a couple weeks after it was on shelves, the soap a couple years ago, Dove for Men was advertising in the Super Bowl, had a huge response there, talking about its message about fatherhood, and the brand has grown from there with Magic Johnson and with other basketball stars through the NCAA tournament, and so it's a very young brand. Dove obviously has a long heritage, but in driving those male credentials for the men's brand, we've done that primarily through sports.
I want to show one video at this point, which is another Funny or Die video. And the reason I'm showing this one first is because I do think what you're doing, because you're slightly a dotted line within the sports space compared to what you guys are doing, is how you can take a brand through humor. And actually, the brand almost is irrelevant in what's happening in this particular clip, but it's how it's engaging with people. And a couple of the other clips we're going to show later also really bring this to life. So if we could show that clip, please. Wherever you are.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, can you tell me where the Under Armour Cold Black golf gear is? Yeah, I just, moved out here and haven't had a chance to unpack my golf stuff, so I'm kind of looking for some. Sure.
Wow. Are you
Tom
from
Brady.
Boston? Your accent. Hey, where's the Under Armour?
Yeah, I don't have a Boston accent. I play football in Boston.
Sorry, man, I can't understand a word you're saying. You're like, hey, what do you mean? I ain't got no Boston accent. Just say something and I'll spitball with you.
No, I really don't.
Go Sox. Hey, that's some wicked hot chowder.
What?
I'm doing an impersonation of you. I'm an actor.
I don't even sound like that.
You sound a lot. You sound like that.
I sound nothing like that.
I beg to differ. You really just gotta try the lobster.
Is there anyone else that can help me?
No. Marky and the Funky Bunch. Now that's a good band. You know what band I love more? Boston.
I'm actually from San Mateo, so.
Oh, San Mateo, Massachusetts? That's really funny, actually. There's a San Mateo here in California. I gotta show people. Hey, everybody, get a load of this Boston guy. Well, they should hear you.
You
Play football.
no, fly from Boston.
Yeah.
No, why would you even say that?
Man, yeah. Your accent is ridiculous. Oh, man, get a picture of me and this nut, Judia.
Okay, say Bostonian, goofball.
Bostonian.
Hey, are you Matt Damon?
No.
I knew it. Affleck.
Hey, man, you must get so hot here all the time, right? Because your blood's thicker? You want me to grab you some water?
No.
Water?
No.
How about some baked beans?
No. You know why? Because I'm not from Boston. I'm from California. I'm a native Californian. I went to Michigan. Now I play for New England. I'm the quarterback, you moron.
You know, you look a lot like that, Standy. Yeah, it's uncanny.
Him?
Yeah. Well, you don't need to go knocking it over like that.
I am the guy on the standee.
I am the guy on the friggin' Standy.
Oh my, Matt Damon, shame on you. He lost his wife in those Bourne movies, but I don't feel bad for him at all.
I'm gonna go and kick that guy's butt.
Well, you look like a reader. Maybe you need some help.
Go help.
You can't treat people like that.
I take a Zumba class. I can dance kick him.
Mike, you just want a quick comment on that. And again, going back to the idea of sport being a great driver for success and how you guys come in and help with a piece like that.
Yeah.
Because do you guys even know who the brand was?
What's that?
I was going to say, do you even know who the brand was behind that?
What brand do you guys think that was for?
Oh, all right. It worked. I thought it was so subtle.
Have you guys seen that before? Yes and no. Yeah, so I mean, you know, the first video that we showed, actually we were the first people to ever see that video. Darren Williams hasn't even seen that video. And if for some reason Darren Williams doesn't like that video, you guys will be the only people who ever see it. But hopefully you will like it because I think it turned out well. So that's kind of what we do just day to day is making, you know, videos just for the fun of it. And that basically attracted an audience, which then anytime you attract an audience, that's when you attract advertisers. So our team had been talking to Under Armour about something to do. And you know, when you have someone like Tom Brady, of course, you want to work with them, but there is no guarantee. So we actually pitched them ideas that involved Tom and didn't involve Tom. And I guess Tom really responded to our ideas, and he got really invested creatively. And then when, you know, I'm sure these guys can relate when they have an athlete like that, they have a certain amount of shoot days that they have each year based on the contract. And so instead of doing another traditional commercial, which Under Armour actually has pretty good spots, they wanted to make a Funny or Die video. So we got Tom for probably about 2 or 3 hours in LA. And that was actually, that store stayed open while we were shooting, because I guess Under Armour has some sort of partnership with Dick's Sporting Goods. So yeah, it turned out well. Tom had a really great time. And for people like that, and a lot of people that we get to work with, it's just something that they don't get to do that often. And it's obviously an unexpected side of him. He had hosted SNL maybe, 10 years ago or so, or when he kind of first came on the national scene. So this was really the first comedy he had done in about a decade, and it turned out really well. And I think that video has gotten a few million views, and invariably led to a less successful sequel, which is what happens in Hollywood. You make one good thing, and then people want another one, and it's still funny, but it just wasn't as special as this one, because this was the first time that Tom had been in something like this, and it's a strong piece. And so yeah, it's definitely a good example of when comedy is really hard. And so if you bat about, it's like baseball, if you bat about 300, you end up in the Hall of Fame. So I could have shown 2 other videos that probably wouldn't have played as well. But when it works, it's awesome. And when it doesn't work, no one sees it. So it's okay.
Oh, Mike's job. I make videos just for the fun of it.
Absolutely. Dan, I'm going to start this one with you. And purely because Dan's background is NASCAR, and Target was one of his clients for a long time, as was Uniliver. So how do you continue to refresh and innovate and revitalize your brand, particularly when sports sponsorship? There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of clutter. Everyone's sort of doing the same thing, and you're all trying to figure out what's the next new thing, and we can't anticipate what that thing is. So how do you go about it?
Yeah, actually, Tom Garfinkel from the earlier panel was talking about this in terms of being able to tell very compelling stories. And we as brands need to be very good, not only storytellers, but story makers. And so everything that we do is built around that type of idea. And we kind of think of things, or I kind of think of things as developing content that's both linked and liquid. And so liquid content to me is any sort of culturally relevant, authentic type of content that can flow through any medium. And so I don't know what video you're going to show for us, but it probably fits that purpose. And so it's emotionally compelling or emotionally rich stories that also become very pervasive as well. And then linked content is any content that continues to link back to our overall business objectives and strategies. And I think when you have content that's linked and liquid, it has the ability to create the engagement that you're looking for, and it has the ability to scale, very quickly. And so that's how we continue to innovate, is through that storytelling.
I'm actually not showing your video right now. I'm going to do it a little bit later.
Well.
But it's a really good video as well. I'd like Matt Kay to take this one on, because although Visa isn't the oldest on the big sponsor, it's certainly one of the granddaddies. And how do you continue to refresh? Because as you said, a credit card's not very sexy. It sits in your pocket. You've got an exclusivity clause, obviously, within the Olympic space. Sometimes it can piss people off. Other times people just go with the flow because that's what's happening. But what do you do? Because you really have to keep pushing.
It's been said a lot today. It's about telling stories, but in this day and age, you actually have to flip that on its head, and we've tried to do that. With the world as it is, and it being a social world now with all the social platforms for the consumer to engage with the brand or the sport property, entertainment property for that matter, it's for us about flipping it on its head. We may tell the story, but we're trying to engage the consumers to be part of that story in some way, shape, or form, to tell us their story, to share our story, to engage in the story. And that's really been the challenge for us over the past several years with the evolution of social media.
We're going to quickly show Matt's video. We might come back to that in a second. And the reason why we selected this one is not just because it's very, very funny, but it's I think it's one of those types of clips that's helping to reposition Visa and to continue to carve through and be more than just a credit card and make the talent and the space that you're in really, really relevant. So if you could run that, please.
Seems like you guys got a little gassed
Enough
out.
already. Come on, guys. Next question here.
What's your favorite color?
What's my favorite color?
Yeah.
Purple.
What's your favorite animal?
Sea turtle.
What's your bedtime? Do you believe in space aliens?
I love puppies.
Hash browns or home fries?
Home fries.
Do you like my dress?
Why can't you guys ask good questions like this?
For a chance to interview an NFL player, join Visa NFL Fan Offers and make your season epic.
Do you want to comment on that one a little bit?
So that was from our campaign last year, and it's telling the story about this specific individual, but conveying the idea that use your Visa card and you can have a chance to win these great experiences. Some of the team guys today talked about experiences being kind of a evolution of where they're going in sports, and we've realized that for a long time is giving people experiences beyond the actual tick in the event is really powerful. This year we actually flipped that campaign on its head, and our NFL campaign is called My Football Fantasy, and it's a social campaign. So instead of telling people you can win this fantasy, we're asking NFL fans, tell us what you want, and we'll deliver it to you. So we're going to pick at least 8, probably 10 fantasies, and we're going to actually deliver them. So people are going to start telling us, what do you want to do? Do you want to interview Ray Lewis? Do you want to be in the locker room with Jim Harbaugh? Do you want to be on the sidelines at the Super Bowl? Do you want to flip the coin? You tell us, and we'll deliver that experience to you. And then as those people start getting awarded those experiences, we're going to share that with the consumer so they can see that they can have that opportunity, and it's all around using their Visa product, which drives our business.
Was that Morgan Freeman on the voiceover?
It was.
I've always wondered, can you share how much you pay Morgan Freeman to do voiceover? I mean, no, he honestly does every other commercial, and he's a great guy, and I've just never asked his manager what he gets paid, so now I'm asking you.
Millions and millions.
It's worth it.
It is worth it. We've used Morgan for a long time, and it's brought a lot of continuity to our campaigns, whether it's the NFL or the Olympics. Morgan, as the voice of God, has worked really well for us.
And is the voice of God associated just with Visa in sport, or do you also use them in other contexts?
We use them in our traditional brand campaign, but we've done so much sport for the past several years. We do more sports than traditional brand, and we do more sports because it works. It works better for us. It delivers far more in terms of ROI and all the brand measures than non-sports.
Because when we were talking, one of the things that you mentioned is how do you find the right space, for example, in music? How do you crack it? It's really, really difficult. That's very liquid and linked, but it's all over the place and very fragmented. So using sport and the voice of God obviously is working really well and cutting through to continue to innovate. One of the things that I asked the guys was about what they'd like to see change within the sports marketing industry. Because brand expansion through sport is one thing, and it's about taking your brand to that next level and trying to find the next big thing, or talking to different audiences, maybe with the same property, but a number of different levels. But sports marketing is hard as well. And you've also got a pull between traditional ways of being and then also trying to take it forward. What would you want to change? And I want to start with Matt. And the reason I want to start with you on this is because your role is a little bit different. It's very much about being insight-led to help get to that nugget, which then delivers ultimately the campaigns that you've been working with Dove and Axe, for example.
So I like to sum up my role in the team as like being the voice of the consumer. And I think one of the things that, I'm also a consumer myself and a big sports viewer. One of the things that drives me crazy is when you see brands like force it so much, saying like, well, we got to get involved in sports, and they just don't know how to do that. And I think, we've had our own struggles with this sort of thing. It's not easy, as you guys were saying. But, we look at ourselves as like deodorant, soap. Like, these aren't products that we're going to come out and say, use this product and you're going to be a better basketball player, or you're going to. I mean, that's silly. That's actually, maybe it'd be funny. Mike, could we work on something like that? Maybe. But, you have no credibility in doing that. And I think when you're a Nike or you're a Gatorade, you do that, and you do that very well. And so I think brands are starting to find like what's their role in there. And so, for example, a Dove Men, they're going to talk about how, you know, becoming a man and becoming a father is a cool thing. And you know, we have athletes who play these different sports who have done that. And that's kind of our story. We're going to relate to you in sports, not tell you why soap and basketball are you know, inextricably linked.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think as an industry, I'd like us to get past the idea of a media impression. And I say that for a couple reasons. That it's a way for us to measure media across multiple different channels. But by definition, impressions are passive. And as a brand, I want to continue to track engagement of my brand. And so, engagement is great, awareness is great, and I think that's what impressions continue to measure. But advocacy, quite honestly, is what I'm more concerned with. And I think if we as a brand are continuing to push to try to measure what we try to refer to as consumer expressions, and that could be a like, it could be a comment, it could be a video, it could be any sort of post on some of the content that we continue to generate. And I think that would be more beneficial to us because we'd be able to track that, continue to learn from it, and apply it to most of our local and national activations. Because, you know, we have to just realize that we will never be able to generate as many messages as our consumers will generate for us on our behalf. And our obligation to them is to continue to feed it with rich content, and whether that's sports or entertainment or fashion or whatever that is, and then just sort of get out of the way. And so if we can move past impressions, get to much more of an engagement index, I think that would be very helpful.
One of the other things, sorry, I'll come back to you in just a second, Mike, that you said when we were talking is having a greater sense of commitment. So when a brand chooses to get behind either an asset or a talent, a sense of loyalty, and kind of sticking with it and finding out who you're getting in bed with, because it is like a marriage, and you need to know what you're doing with that. I'm just wondering if you wanted to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a 25-year relationship with a professional race team, and for most people, they would look at Target and say, why does Target have a professional race team for 25 years? If you look at our core consumer, she's a digitally savvy, time-crunched mom. Do you think that fits with IndyCar and NASCAR? And so there's other reasons why you would be involved in sports. Maybe it's a B2B play. Maybe it's an opportunity to reach a different demographic through something that you don't use through your traditional channels. But having a 25-year commitment to an asset like that has continued to provide lots of opportunities where we have one race left, for example, this year in the IndyCar Series, and we could win our 10th championship in the last 13 years. And that's something that we have a legacy and an opportunity and a real emotional connection with all those fans that have been supporting the sport for all those years. And so we definitely benefit from something like that.
There's a video that we're going to show now, which is what Dan brought along, and I think it kind of underpins this whole idea of knowing why you're going to stick with a talent and what you're investing in, and it's a very humble approach. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about before or after.
Yeah, so we've targeted action sports. It's one of those things where you wouldn't find. We're not an endemic brand to action sports. We're not a Ruka. We're not a Volcom. We're not a Red Bull. We're not a Quicksilver. But we had a fledgling relationship with an unknown 15-year-old kid 10 years ago named Sean White. We were his first sponsor, and he's grown into being obviously an Olympian, and he's grown into being a $60 million brand of clothing for Target. And so we continue to build out this model, and again, as we start thinking about how we wanted to integrate ourselves into this sport, it wasn't about plastering our logo all over everything, because that's ultimately what I think the industry would have expected us to do. But we actually take a very deliberate process in terms of how we identify the athletes that we want to partner with. And then we try to build their brand very authentically through the idea of trying to make them the champion that they set out to be. And so this video series that we created this year called The Way Up specifically focus on that one moment in these people's careers where they knew or realized that they could be the champion that they became today. And so it's something that's very ownable for Target. And again, it's not throwing ourselves out there with all the regular pyrotechnics that happen in the action sports business. It's a very authentic way of storytelling, and so it's garnered close to 5 million hits for us on YouTube, and it's something that we promoted, not $1 behind promotion for it. So,
will you run that video, please?
I mean, the guys I looked up to in motocross were pro.
So I always considered like being pro on the tour.
It took a really long time for me before it clicked.
And I was about to give up, and then I got it.
That definitely gave me a big confidence boost.
Pretty good, man. We'll put you on the team. Really? Oh, yeah, we'll put you on the C team.
We always looked in the pits like, dude, look at that factory bike, you know, like, and we couldn't get in the pits, you know.
I was still like 9 or 10 years old, so I didn't really know much, you know.
And I was the little annoying kid in the shop asking a million questions. What's the best board? Oh, how do you do this trick? Oh, how do you do that? Oh, cool. Can I see that? Can I see it? And not buy anything.
For a long time, I really didn't realize that being a professional skier was an option.
I just wanted to surf, and it looked fun, and it seemed rad.
Once I realized, you know, you could become professional, you know, that's what I set my eyes on.
From there, they put me in like little ski lessons and stuff.
Oh my God, I'm making progress. That was my first milestone, my first type of like shark smells a drop of blood and water. Like,
It was a really lovely video, I assure you. You could be the 5,000,001th person to go ahead and watch it on YouTube. Mike, you wanted to say something. Sorry I interrupted you earlier.
Yeah, part of me wants to talk about Shaun White because I almost on like clockwork, once a year, I get an email from his brother or CAA saying like, oh yeah, Shaun wants to get together and talk about ideas. And we're like, okay, we've done this before, but let's do it again. And we get together and we have a great meeting and we talk about all the things we're going to make. And one time they actually called me about doing something for Target. I was like, oh, okay, well, let's figure this out. And then he always goes to China for 3 months.
Yep.
And then we never see him again until the next meeting where we have the exact same meeting.
Right.
And so maybe this can be the panel that finally brings together Funny or Die and Shaun White. I don't even care about Target's money. I just want to finally make a video with him because I've had like 5 meetings with him.
I think he would totally be open to it. He's practicing for a career post-Olympics, and he's a guitarist in a band called Bad Things. He's actually pretty good. I hate to admit it because it stokes his ego, but he's actually pretty good, and so that is actually indicative, quite honestly, of a lot of the management teams that are involved within some of these action sports athletes. Is that sometimes they're not as professionally motivated or they don't understand the bigger opportunities, and so it takes a little bit more.
We won't give up.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, he's a good guy.
And the thing I was going to say is kind of that touches on. It makes sense that brands spend so much time on the big events, Super Bowl, the Final Four, the Masters, things like that, because those drive a huge audience, and that's where they want to be. But I do think there's a huge opportunity to do things that are more left of center, that are much more cheap, and can kind of touch base with an audience that isn't expecting, like, oh, wow, I can't believe this brand is here. And instead of being one of 50 brands trying to, like,
the unexpected,
cut through all that clutter at the Final Four, be the only brand that's doing that weird thing that you wouldn't expect, I think you get a lot more ownership that way.
And also would kind of resonate with an always-on strategy, because if you can't obviously just aggregate everything you're doing around big assets, if you're just having peaks and troughs all the time, it's a very difficult model to follow. So I agree, but it has to be a courageous brand. Not every brand can go off and do the wild and wacky thing.
We did. I wouldn't say they were courageous, but we did. We actually had our own Super Bowl commercial a few years ago. So Will Ferrell, who's the founder of Funny or Die, did a commercial for Old Milwaukee beer, but it only aired in three markets. So it was like in Nebraska, it was in North Dakota, it was like in like Wisconsin.
You guys have seen this? I'm hearing sniggers in the audience, yeah?
And it was great because so technically Funny or Die had a Super Bowl commercial, but it was only in those 3 markets. And it was a great like lo-fi commercial that like cut off right when Will was like giving the pitch about Old Milwaukee, and it's a really effective piece. But I think that's an example of a brand kind of willing to do something different, because no one thinks about Old Milwaukee. But as soon as you get Will and Old Milwaukee in kind of the Super Bowl stunt, then it got gotten written up. I don't even know how many millions of views it got and mentions, but I think I do give them credit because they were basically, at rock bottom, so they might as well try anything.
The only way is up, right?
Yeah.
Well, Matt K, do you think it's Visa? You could really go very left of center.
I don't know if we go very left of center, but we more and more are trying new things. I mean, and again, I go back to social. Social is a space for a lot of companies that is a little scary.
Right.
Because when you invite people to comment and to tweet and to tell you what their fantasy might be, and to cheer on athletes in the social space, I mean, you lose a tremendous amount of control. It's a place now that we're getting more comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place that the leagues, the IOC, the NFL, they're getting slightly more comfortable with.
Even the IOC?
Slightly more comfortable with.
Okay.
So we're starting to get there, but you're right. I think doing things that are different and breakthrough is getting more and more difficult to do, and brands who are risk takers, I think, will be the beneficiaries of that.
And just to build on that with social, I mean, high risk, high reward as well, though. We saw last year Dwayne Wade was in a Dove Men ad, and just by pure luck for us, LeBron's watching the NCAA tournament, tweets at Dwayne Wade, yo, D Wade, you got to get me some of that Dove Men product. All of a sudden, there's 10 million followers of LeBron who are exposed to that message. So that can be the value of having these, having talent that has these huge social followings and can just sort of naturally, extend your brand message like that.
As long as there's that sense of authenticity as well.
Exactly.
And not a sold message.
Exactly.
We're starting to run out of time, so I'm going to go to a couple questions later because I want to make sure we can show your video as well. So one of the other questions I asked the guys is, what do they think their secret ingredient is for success? I had vastly different answers. But what makes you stand out from the competition? And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Scarlata.
All right. Well, I know you said you're going to show the video in a little bit, but I think I think the start of it is your brand strategy and what are you trying to get consumers to think about your brand, and then figuring out the way it goes. So Axe is the video that we're going to show. For years in the NCAA tournament, Axe said, we're going to show just our regular spot, kind of, guy uses the new product that came out this year, he gets the girl. We've seen that formula quite a bit, but that doesn't really cut through with the basketball audience any more than any other audience. So what we tried this year was, what if we do something that's a little bit more contextually relevant, as we call it, and that seemed to draw a great response from consumers in terms of using it was old basketball footage, and we'll show the video with an Axe twist on the end of it to get its message across.
Okay, if we can show that, please.
.5 seconds left. Valparaiso and Ole Miss are down to the wire. Is this the end for Bryce Drew and the Crusaders? Inbound to Jenkins, to Drew for the win. There is an astronaut on the court. You gotta be kidding me. What a moment. An astronaut. It just does not get any better than this. Heroes are made in March, but nothing beats an astronaut. Join now at axapollo.com for your chance to go to space.
And there it is, true to the Axe message, broke through great in the space, and got our message across that astronauts are heroes, and Axe is gonna send guys to space to make them legends as well.
Mike, what about you?
Secret recipe?
Yeah, ingredient for success. How do you stand out?
I mean, I think any company, would say a few different things. It's tough to point it all at one, but I think Funny or Die has great relationships with celebrities. And when Will Ferrell made The Landlord, which was kind of the first ever Funny or Die video, no one was used to seeing a movie star on the internet at that time. That was 2007. I started in 2008. It was like a very lo-fi home video looking, piece of content. And I think that just changed everyone's, preconception of what online content could be. And I think we've just been able to build off of that. And I think we work with a lot of great people, but just cause it's just like movies. Just because you have a movie star in a movie doesn't mean it's going to perform. So it all comes down to the content, the idea, the writing, and there's a lot of social media and all these things that have evolved. At the end of the day, it's still just like, oh, if you like something, you're going to share it with someone, whether it's old school and you're emailing it to people or just telling them about it or posting it, we're always trying to come up with content that, makes us laugh and that we would want to share with people. And then hopefully, that translates and transcends into a much larger audience.
I'd say there's two things. One is things that happen behind the scenes. So you have to use an incredible amount of discipline before you get involved in any sort of partnership or activity. And the discipline stems from the fact that the fact that the CEO likes a specific sport is just not relevant anymore. And so, you have to be disciplined in terms of where you spend your dollars. And we feel like we have a great model. So if I had $2.50 to spend on a specific property, I would spend basically 50 cents on the property themselves. I spend $1.50 on the actual activation or media around that, and then I'd spend another 50 cents on measurement. We're big into measurement. I'm a firm believer in the old adage that what you measure improves and what you ignore degrades, and it's as simple as that. And then the second thing is that we use the lens, and every partnership opportunity that we go through or get into is to try to elevate the everyday. We feel like as a Target, as a brand, it's very ownable for us. And so, as we start thinking about how that contextualizes into driving traffic into our stores, creating, brand love or deepening engagement with our guests that come and shop at Target, elevating the everyday is something that we can continually focus on and own. And again, if you can use that lens and bring it to life, in whatever manifestation, people will recognize as something to specifically target. I use an example of Disney on Ice, and I have nothing against that property, but any brand could put their brand name in front of Disney on Ice. It could go from Sears to Kraft Foods to Cocoa Puffs. And the difference is that that's something that Target would never be involved in because it's not uniquely Target. If somebody came to me, on the other hand, and said, here's the deal, Harry Potter hasn't been around in a long time. I'm going to create a Harry Potter world. I'm going to attract a whole new fans of Harry Potter. It's something I think Target would own. It's about family. It's about connecting with moms. And I'd say, you know what? I would actually take a look at something like that just because it's something very unique and something that's differentiated. And so between the discipline piece and the ability to use the same lens for every single partnership that we do, I think that's our secret ingredient.
There's a couple things for us. I think probably the first and most important one is really understanding the consumer and getting consumer insights into why they have passion around certain of these sports properties. So take the Olympics, for example. It's all about the athletes, and we've known that for a long time. And so almost everything we do is focused around the athletes, telling the athlete story, promoting and sponsoring athletes, helping them achieve their dreams. And that formula has worked well because that's what people care about. On the NFL, we have insights as well about the togetherness of the team and how that brings people together. People rally around their team. It's family, it's tradition, it's friends. And a manifestation of that for us was a couple of years ago, we ran a promotion called U plus 10. So we didn't just give away a trip to the Super Bowl as a prize. It was you plus 10 people. You could invite any 10 people. The idea of bringing people together because, yeah, it's great to go, and it might be really great to bring someone, but to bring 10 people, that's an extraordinary opportunity that no one really would ever get. We can deliver it to you as a brand, and it fits right in with this consumer insight about togetherness in football.
I think it was a really important point that Dan said, and I'm sure you all buy into this, particularly you, Matt S. at the end. But working on the agency side, I work with loads and loads of brands who don't put aside enough money for the research and the measurement. It's all about you buy the asset, you might have enough money to put into the activation, but very little is put aside. And that's incredibly important because if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, you don't know whether or not you've achieved it. So when you go out there and you get those first jobs, and if you go into research or anything else, think about that, push for it. The guys don't sit there in a corner looking white and pasty and looking at numbers and data for no reason. There's a really good reason. So use your research and your data. It will help you do better work at the end.
Those white pasty guys are your best friends.
So we're on Q&A? Is that what I was? Okay. So skip a couple of questions. We're going to open it up to you guys if you've got some questions, hopefully, for this fabulous panel.
Yeah, I mean, I use the Way Up videos as a perfect example, right? I mean, we spent a specific amount of money on the production of it and then sent it out into the world through our influencer networks, right? So I'm a big advocate in having a relatively wide net of influencers that can spread your word for you and become your megaphone. And, you know, within a matter of a couple months, we had, 5 million hits on those sorts of things. And so those were 5 million people that were endemic in that industry that connected with what we were able to create. And so that would be a perfect example. And then that's just people that watched it. That didn't even count how many people were actually commenting on it, and then some of those things that build off of that. And not all the comments were positive either. You know, there are a lot of people that are like, Target, it's stupid, or I don't shop there or whatever. And, it's our duty to continue to look at those people and say, again, there's always the haters in the crew, but the largely positive. And as you start to measure, not only on the engagement side, the actual sentiment is something that we also try to measure, and sentiment, positive or negative, and then try to move the needle. But if you put out compelling enough content that people really connect with and want to react to, generally they're going to respond to it in a very positive way. And again, it's your obligation to put it out there and see what happens.
We'll all probably want to build quickly on this one because it's such a key piece of it, but that's a big part of what I do at Uniliver. And the question we're always asking ourselves is, after an event or whatever it is that's going on, do the followers of that, the fans of that, think any differently about our brand? Because we're all thinking about ROI and are we selling more product, and that that's obviously a big part of it too. But are we reaching the right people, or making them think differently about us? Whatever it is that we're a brand like Dove, which has its history, selling products to women. Is it a brand for men? Or Axe, is it, people think it's a cooler brand based on the things we're doing? That's a question we're always asking ourselves.
Other questions?
Can I just make one comment on ROI real quick? Because it is super important from a brand perspective. And I think one of the things that, the ways which I've always thought about is, we're in the sports business, and it's all about winning and losing. At the end of the day, if you cannot look your boss in the eye and say, we won, and show him how you won with some type of data or research to prove it, then you've lost. You have to be able to prove you won, just like in sports. And the measure, the score, is whatever ROI, whatever measurement system you use. And you better have one, or it's going to be a really uncomfortable meeting when your boss says, did we win or lose?
Just one thing to add on that is sports sexy. A lot of people want to get into it because you want to go to the great events, you want to hang out with the talent, you want to just be around it all. But as Matt just said, if you can't go ahead and prove that there's a reason for you to be there in that sport to help extend your brand, there's no point being there, because the sexiness will walk away because you won't have a job to go back to. Any other questions? Sorry.
This is for Mr. Kauffman. What went into picking the 49ers and the Ravens as the two teams that you used for your commercials last year during the season?
Well, we knew they would both be in the Super Bowl. It's really that simple. We have team relationships in addition to our NFL league relationships. This year we have 19 teams, separate team deals. We do a lot of analysis. So there's analytics that go behind it. And between that and really the creative idea, looking at Mike, when good creatives come with good ideas and you get good sports marketing people together to marry the right team with the idea, sometimes magic happens and you pick the two teams that go to the Super Bowl.
Is that for anyone in particular? For anybody in particular?
For everybody.
Okay.
You probably produce the most content.
Yeah, well, I don't mean to buck the trend. I think research is great, but I tend to, my whole focus is just on the content. And if you make something that's good, and because not everything can pop. So I do think analytics are very important, and I'm sure our branded entertainment team and our sales team is probably more focused on that. I'm just really focused on the content. I mean, for us, it's simple. It's views. It's like how many people see this and want to share it and are talking about it on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, whatever it is. So And it's tough because I've probably been a part of, we make about 25 original videos a month, and probably 2/3 or 3/4 of them have some celebrity component. And, so I've been a part of, like, in over 5 years, probably, I don't know, like 1,000 videos. So I'm always trying to challenge our team and the people that we work with, like, what haven't we done before? Like, what's the internet's kind of like a newspaper, right? Like, what people are talking about, it ends up on the front page. It ends up at the top of BuzzFeed and all of those things. Whereas, just a funny sketch that isn't really touching on anything that's going on in the world is kind of like the funnies, which is on the back page, which you don't really ever get to. So we always constantly think about what do people care about? What's the right idea for this right person that's going to cut through? And if you do that, then that's the hard part. You like the measurement and think if something doesn't work, there's not much to measure. It didn't work. You kind of figure it out. You move on. So we never get too hung up on that because we make so many things. I'm very fortunate because certainly I report to the board of directors and things like that, and views are very important. But it's not like Will and McKay are asking me for like analytics on like every single video we
It'd be hard to imagine that actually.
Yeah, it's probably a sketch in its own right.
Absolutely.
Us trying to talk through that. So we're focused on the content, and we know when something pops, and some things you just know are going to work. When you have Zach Galifianakis interviewing Justin Bieber, and the first line is "Thanks so much for spending time with us in the middle of your public meltdown," like that's going to work. And so, but the other ones are it's kind of more exciting when you do have to think of that right idea and that right take that kind of like breaks through, because we have tons of content without celebrities that get just as many views.
Mm-hmm.
We end up getting probably, page views a month, around 50 million a month. So they're not all celebrity content, and it just comes down to that idea and executing it well, and then, hoping people like it.
That answer your question? Good. Any other questions?
Yeah, my question can really be answered by anybody. So, when you have these partnerships with different brands, individuals, and companies, is there a certain kind of like ratio that you have that these partnerships stem from you searching them out and seeing that they fit with your mission compared to these other brands, other events, other individuals searching you out because they feel they can be a good fit for your values compared to what they also value?
I mean, I get pitched probably, no lie, 30 different partnerships a day from people, all the way stemming from Amish rake fighting to, any sort of Amish rake fighting. Yeah, it is something.
You passed on that?
Yeah, I did. It's
there's another
really,
video coming out.
Really close to our sweet spot. Yeah, absolutely.
That might be the best thing I've ever heard.
You didn't get that one? Yeah, it's a niche thing, but it's got potential. Big potential, like the digitally savvy time crunch mom. That's what she's doing these days. And so for us, I'd say maybe one out of every legitimately 150 have some jewel in there that is something that I would take a look at. And the majority of it for me then comes back to being able to work with companies like a Uniliver, for example, because we have such a strong relationship with them. We sell a ton of their product. Is to say, where are you already investing? So I know that you're already investing in the Oscars. I already know you're investing in the Grammys. You've got an NCAA partnership. You've got this. You've got that. We spend media dollars at each of those same places, right? So, gee, where could we create a story that actually tells the consumer something a little bit better that would drive more traffic to our stores specifically to maybe feature Unilever products, and then we can shave our media dollars in half and be able to share in something. So, those are the types of conversations, strategic conversations that we like to have with our vendor companies, and that's one of the benefits of working for Target. We're not only just building the brand of Target and what the bullseye means, but we're also helping build the brands of all the different vendor companies that participate in the store.
We love it when it works out like that, and our products are on the displays at the end of the aisle, and the themes around basketball, and they sell a lot better too. So again, going back to what I was saying earlier, the overwhelming majority is the brand strategy drives the are you going to be in that sport, and then who's going to represent your brand, and so most of the time it's us kind of having an idea of who's that type of person that we want to represent us.
Anybody else?
One other thing I would add, and it's really important if you guys go work for the team side and you're pitching brands, is that there's a difference between doing research on the company itself and providing them a solution based on a problem that you think that they're solving versus selling them an asset that you have that you're trying to unload, right? And so I would encourage every single one of you, if you're working for a team, to use that perspective of really get into the mindset of what problem am I trying to solve based on the data that I can glean from the internet and the marketing materials that we continue to put out, rather than saying I've got 2 suites, I've got a sign in left field, and I'll give you a couple of parking passes. And then you're like, well, what the hell does that do for me? And so